Bring in effects.
Rolling. Cut. Ready? And action.
Yeah, beautiful night.
Bravo had published a list of the 100 greatest horror films of all time. And I found that I had seen almost all of them, except for number 70 I had never seen, which was The Stepfather. And it was surrounded by absolute classics in my mind, and I couldn't believe that I had never heard of this film.
It's a film that I had been aware of. I remember watching the first Stepfather film, and it was kind of haunting, and it had this sort of, I don't know, almost cultish, following to it at the time. And I thought, what a great idea. Let's take that and let's bring that to life. The opening to our version of The Stepfather is very identical to the original Stepfather. That was such a tragic, classic way to open a film, and I think that's one of the things for those who remember the original film that will haunt you forever. Casting gets easier, the more you work in this town and this business, because you've worked with more people. So you start to picture who might be right for this film before you even get to going through the list and the readings and the normal process. There were many parts that I didn't ask him to read. I said, if you're available, I'd love for you, if you do this, you'd be awesome in it. Can we make the dates work? Many directors will tell you that's the biggest part of their job. If you get the right people in the role, it's believable, it's real.
We actually looked at several different actors to play the role of David, who ended up being Dylan Walsh. There was other choices, but they were too obvious in nature, and you'd think, why would I invite that guy into my house to begin with?
What you want to do is see a bad guy for the first time, somebody who maybe played an icon or sort of just a good, solid hero guy, but never an antagonist before. You wanted someone to go there for the first time, so that you really buy when he's in those happy moments with his family. That's the easy, and then it's really shocking when this guy turns, because we never think of him that way.
Your mother said to turn it down.
I'd worked with Dylan many times on Nip Tuck. Dylan has enormous talent and enormous chops, and you don't often get a chance to see that in the role that he's playing on that TV show, because it's very defined who he has to be on that show. There's so much more to Dylan than meets the eye, so I thought, this is great. This is going to be the exact way to go to sort of seduce us into this world.
Well, I imagine this guy is having a well-formed mask, and as the movie goes on, it gets chipped away at a little bit here and there, so that you start to see the guy underneath it.
His character on the surface seems so incredibly charming and kind, but then there's just that one little flavor. Something's just the tiniest bit off. I didn't mean to make such a fuss about your work and all. I don't want you to do anything you don't want to do. I want you to be as happy as I am.
Have fun.
He's dealing with a hard role. You got to layer it, but you don't want it to be too obvious or too subtle. You have to just layer it correctly. And one freedom that he's allowed that I think is great is that he can always underplay it, because everyone knows he's a killer.
It's great for me, because it's a character who on the surface is kind of what, sort of, if there's a stereotype for me to play, it would be. And yet it turns it on its head by the end. So I've had also more fun with this than anything in a long time. The first day, we had scheduled something else when there was rain. It's one of these typical things on a schedule where suddenly we were doing a very difficult scene, which was the one in the basement with the tequila, and I don't know him yet. And yet it has to be a scene where I'm comfortable.
That was such an awkward first scene, because it was the first day on set. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning. Nobody knew anybody's names yet, barely. But it lent itself to the scene, because that was our first real meeting.
Now, don't let your mom know I've got a tequila stash. Worked my ass off trying to convince her I'm perfect.
I sort of feel like the actors have a better advantage the more loaded they are with little details and things to draw from as they create their characters, because they don't look at the film the same way I'm looking at it. I mentioned Shadow of a Doubt, the classic Hitchcock film. Look at Joe Cotton's performance. He's fooled a family into thinking that he's their uncle. In reality, he's a murderer who's just hiding from the cops. That's a great performance to watch. Looking at Dylan's character, I thought of Anthony Minghella's film, The Talented Mr. Ripley. Look at this guy who's this chameleon, the Matt Damon performance. Inside, very driven by self-preservation, and that's what leads him to murder, and it's only because he has to. That's kind of the same reason and mentality and justification that I thought would work in Dylan's character.
I saw on TV this woman who drove off a bridge with her 3 kids in the back seat.
It was some not dinner table conversation, young lady.
They all drowned.
Maybe they disappointed her.
Penn is such a intelligent person. He's such a talented actor that anything he does is so believable. We get invested in. It's like he constantly makes the right choice as a character in a scene that you would want to do if you were this guy. And so that's why he's so likable, because he's very relatable.
Interestingly enough, on the first remake that was done in '87 that you spoke of, it was actually through the eyes of a girl. It was a woman, a younger girl. In speaking with the studio, they thought, it might be better to go through a boy. And we tended to agree, because there is a metaphor and or competition that comes with a son and a new father, being the man of the house, so to speak.
Penn Badgley's young, and I don't know that I've ever worked with an actor of his age that is that mature. Has a very solid core strength about him.
But the thing about Penn is he's a very contemplative guy, he's an articulate guy, and for as young as he is, he has a maturity. And if anything, part of his challenge is to wind that back so we get a young guy, and he does it really well.
Nailed it. That's what this is about.
It's hard for actors to do scary movies because you have to completely sort of trust the fact that you've got to be utterly, out there emotionally and in your reactions, which feel internally so over the top when you're doing it.
It's scary. I've stepped into a world I know nothing about. I'm trying to go with it. And Nelson has had to push me in those scenes where Susan is in jeopardy and fighting for her life and her children's life, which is all new to me because I've never done a movie like this.
Sela's gift and her talent is in relationship dramas, that true sort of give and take between characters in normal life.
Look, Michael, I know it's difficult to come home to another man in the house, and I just need you to try and get along, okay?
Mom, can we just hold the lectures, please? I've been home for 2 seconds. Everyone's sort of against me in the sense that they just think I'm paranoid. I mean, no one really knows that I'm thinking this except for Kelly, my girlfriend, who I confide in.
I think it's important that she counterbalances his suspicions, and as an audience member, because you know who the killer is, you know that the stepfather is indeed evil. You as an audience member, I guess, tend to think that it makes sense where Michael's coming from. But we need to be reminded that it's actually kind of outlandish. Let me get this straight, right? The neighborhood weirdo sees a show about a man who kills his family, and then you think that David mixed up the name of his daughter. So therefore, he's the guy that killed his family?
No.
Yeah, that all adds up to me.
Amber is a great actress. She is great in situations with the other actors, which we like, and she's like at the pool scene when she's with Penn, she looks great, and they look well together. We wanted to make sure that we had a couple that actually had some chemistry, so it was believable as his girlfriend.
What she adds to this film is a great balance, because when you have a character like Michael who's so sure that he's right, you have to have a character opposite him. You have to have a character who's doubting him, which is often the dynamic of relationships. It's often the dynamic of male-female relationships or any sort of couple that it isn't complicity all the time. There's a lot of controversy, a lot of difference of opinion. And so watching her and Penn together really worked nicely.
Michael, come on. Damn it, Michael.
We needed a home with a swimming pool with certain sight lines from rooms in the home and a 3rd story with an attic for the stunt. And we decided on the style of Craftsman because it lended itself to very good visuals, lots of depth and lighting possibilities. We had an exhaustive search of Craftsman homes in Pasadena, which is, a great place to look for that style of architecture because it's so rich. The home that we wound up on was really quite wonderful, but it only had 2 stories. So I actually had the construction team, or the design team, design and build a third-story attic that we sat on the roof of the home. Painted it in to match the home, and it was actually rather successful because neighbors were coming by and sort of felt that it had always been there.
Steve Jordan, one of the most gifted production designers you'll ever meet, decided let's build all 3 floors of what we need inside a stage and do it in a way where you could shoot in all directions and not be limited by anything. There'll be real roofs, there'll be real stairs. You could literally take a camera and come in through the front door and go all the way up to the attic. The idea to build almost every inch of this house in a practical set on stage here was something that would be daunting, I think, to a lot of people, and Steve just hammered it home. I've never seen a set so completely finished in all directions. We actually built the interior of the house after we found the exterior of the house, so we could cover it both ways. We could actually be on the location and do some scenes from inside looking out, and be on the set for the scenes outside looking in. I defy you to tell me where one stops and the other begins, because it's so seamless.
Now, when I designed the set, I was very faithful to the architecture of the house. But once I got beyond the front door and the back door, it sort of became our world. And the layout of the house was based upon the script requirements, the lighting, the camera moves, and just when you're in a set for 4 weeks shooting, it gets pretty tough to find new angles every day. So that was one of my challenges, was to really come up with a set that had enough depth, windows, and architectural interest just to sort of sustain that volume of work.
What's B camera doing?
Whatever you want, sir.
Have him on a 50 chasing his head.
Right.
This is all about the waist down. I really wanted the style of the film to feel like it was paralleling